Okay, Sika put out some news actually while I was putting this deck together. So fortunately, I saw it. Somebody emailed me and said, "Hey, wow, did you see this?" I was able to put a few slides together to talk about the update they gave this morning. It looks like a pretty good update to me. Okay, they have started drilling. In fact, they've completed one hole, number 57. I think they're on to 58 now, and you can see where they're located with the green arrow there. And they are sticking to the script. Okay, we put money in last November along with other parties, and they now have enough money they can go in and retest some of the high grade that they hit late last year. Okay, this is wonderful. Reduced intrusion story. I really like it. I really like the team, and I think they're gonna hit it this year. I think they're gonna hit something big in my view. It's just my gut, my instinct. But let's talk more about what they're trying to test. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, last year they had a very high grade intercept in hole number 47. You can see some of the numbers there. There's 55 meters inside of a broad interval. I think it's 219 meters of 1.3 grams, but inside of that, there's 55 meters of a little over 3 grams, almost a tenth of an ounce per ton. And then there's inside of that 14 meters of 5.5 grams within a high grade area that's down deep in that drill intercept. Okay, so it's pretty deep, but it's important. Geologic is very important. And one of the things we talked about with the company was retesting that area, and that's precisely what they did. The first drill hole they drilled, go to the next slide, cuts across, but deeper through that same area. So you can see hole 47 right in the middle of the slide with the flags that have the assays. Okay, but hole 57 is the deeper one. It's what, about 200 meters, I think, or change, maybe even a bit more deeper than hole 47. Okay, and this was a big test. This is a big long hole. It's 550 meters or thereabouts, I think. And they actually saw a nice interval with veining and visible gold down deep or down below that previous high grade. To me, that's a great outcome. I do think at some point this thing's going to blow out a bit more and there's going to be more involved. I also think that other dike-like thing they have over here to the left could have some high grade developing at depth as well. That'll be tested here shortly, as I understand it. Now, what does this mean? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a very long intercept reported out of this drill hole. Okay, now it probably will have a higher grade component to it where they see the VG down towards the bottom. Yes, no problem. But look at all that lower grade material in the other holes, the earlier holes up top. You know, what might come back, I don't know. Okay, but I think we will see a very long intercept of reportable gold out of this hole that says, hey, the volume of rock that we're looking at here that's mineralized is much, much bigger than previously thought. Okay, so hold tight. We don't know what the assays are, but they're seeing the same kind of things that we saw at Snowline with the veining, the specks of visible gold and such. This could have a very, very good outcome. Go to the next slide. Here's some of the core up at the top. Some of the mineralization was in the green, which were sedimentary rocks or metasedimentary rocks. And then they went into this knobby, crowded porphyry intrusion, monzonite intrusion. And if you look at the core down there in the bottom two rungs, there's this speckledy rock. That's that intrusive rock. But notice there's some big quartz, that kind of light gray or tan gray stuff that you see there is big scale quartz veining. Okay, that's huge. And in that, they see visible gold. So the photo over here on the right-hand side is some of the gold that they see in the quartz veining. I think that's very important. You know, when I saw this, I thought, wow, that's to me, like visually, that looks more mineralized in the core from the intercept in hole 47, which was above. Okay, so I do think they're seeing a general improvement in the amount of veining and intensity, if you will, of the mineralization. Let's hope that is reflected by the gold grades here as well. Okay, so I'm pretty keen to see where this is going. But it got me to thinking about a project I worked on about 32 years ago, when I was a graduate student in School of Mines. I was trying to pay my bills, and I did some side work for MK Gold, which is a Morrison Knudsen gold company. It was a old gold company. It's no longer around. But it was right after the Soviet Union collapsed. And they had a project in Kyrgyzstan. We could go to the next slide called Zhuroy. And this deposit, I found some data. It's really hard to find data on the internet, but it's a deposit in Kyrgyzstan that's been known about for a long, long time. The Russians found it, and they drifted and tunneled and stuff, and they drilled, and they explored the bejeebers out of this thing. And I was doing some work on a resource estimate for MK back in the period around 1992 or three, I think it was. And you can see some of the numbers there. Okay, down there with the green arrow, and this is historic data, guys, but there was a high grade component to that deposit. It was 11.2 million tons at 5.92 grams, and the current reserves, meaning, okay, after we did the work, they defined reserves. We came up, and those numbers are actually quoted down there. We came up with 9.88 million tons of 7.5 grams. So there was a really nice high grade core to the thing. It's kind of a banana shaped thing, if I remember right, and it was nearly vertical. But then there was a cloud of lower grade around it. And the resources around it were 25 million tons at 3.97 grams. And I thought, I mean, that's really not much tonnage. If you compare it to, say, Snowline target, where you got, probably 200 or 300 million tons of rock there, what this is an extreme example of a more structurally controlled version of a reducive intrusive system. So what I'm saying is, you can take your gold and just blow it out through a big intrusion like at Snowline and Valley and make a wonderful homogeneous deposit. No problem. It's a wonderful mine, or it will make a wonderful mine when it's put together. But then you can also get situations where the gold with the reduced intrusion is actually focused more in certain areas. And that veining that I'm seeing in those core photos from today's news release, look, guys, just my gut. Okay, I'm not promising anything, but it reminds me a lot of stuff I saw from Zhuroy many, many years ago. Very intense quartz and thicker veins, little specks of VG through it. It looks very much like that. And it could be, I'm just telling people, maybe the direction that this project takes is, maybe you have a big cloud of low grade, but inside of that, you have some very high grade, maybe a few million tons or a few, 20 million tons of higher grade. And that's the kind of thing you can get in some of these reduced intrusive systems. Wouldn't that be a cool outcome? Okay. Not a bad outcome, but hey, that's my 2 bits. We got to wait for assays. We got to wait for a lot of things, but I'm really hopeful they're kind of seeing something develop kind of like this. Let's go to the next slide. Newfound put some news out a couple of days ago. Very high grade results from this area they call Iceberg Alley, which is way off on the northeast limb of the Iceberg area. Very high grades. They had 2.55 meters of 186 gram per ton gold. That's crazy. Okay. That's 6 ounce per ton gold. That's, dollar wise, a ton of that rock is over, it's almost $13,000 per ton. I mean, let that set in your brain there. Everybody that kind of, shrugs their shoulder and, what do they got here? Well, hello, you don't need many tons of this to make a lot of gold, guys. And the photos here are gorgeous. They remind me just, there's spitting image of some of the high grade at Fosterville. This is amazing. Go to the next slide and I'll show you where this is at. It is way off. So if you look at the image on the left, you can see the blue box there. And Iceberg Alley is way up in the upper right corner there. So you have to go over here to the right-hand side, and you can see Iceberg Alley is tucked way up in the upper right corner of that image. And it's the extension, the fault. It's a faulted sliver that's shifted up, and it's the extension of the iceberg zone way off to the east. Nobody ever dreamed that there would be high-grade gold this far away from the Appleton Fault Corridor. But you remember that gravity or seismic data I showed a couple of weeks ago, and you think about all those little structures out that are evident in that seismic data, and you think about this little vein way out here, way out in the, Pajingas, way out away from the Appleton Fault. Who knows what could be here? I mean, this is really encouraging. You could start to see extensions of veins way out from the Appleton Fault Corridor that have high grade. Okay, anybody that thinks this is a small deposit, you're wrong. It's going to be a big one in my view. And, you can take 6 ounce rock and build up a lot of ounces really, really quickly. Okay, so I'm very excited at what I'm seeing here. Go to the next slide. Okay, last news release I'm going to talk about was out of Novo, and I am co-chairman here. But one of the things we did, we reassayed a lot of the samples that we collected from drilling RC at Nary last year, and we reassayed them. We assayed multiple pots, 500-gram pots, using crysols, and it produced higher grade results. Why? Because there's coarse gold in the system. Okay, so by analyzing larger samples and then multiple pots of those samples, and then averaging those numbers, we get resultant, increase of very significant increases in the assays of some of these intervals. And these are pretty good intercepts. Okay, so we are going to go back to Nary and drill some more holes. We're doing 4,000 more meters of drilling, because this has given us encouragement to say, hey, you know what, there might be a pretty decent shot at a resource. Why do I say that? Go to the next slide. You can see the strike length of Nary North. It is big. This is a big target. Basically, that belt, that green belt through there, is all prospective. Even the areas down here to the left in the pink intrusive rocks, that is prospective. And we've only drilled that one little cluster of drill holes there where you see the black polka dots. Okay, this thing has a lot of runway, and that kind of strike, which is over a kilometer, it's like almost 2 kilometers, you could host a decent deposit. So let's go to the next slide. And what are we seeing here? Those holes were shallow. Okay, all of those holes that I just talked about, the results, they're quite shallow. They're RC holes, and they've defined some high grade, shallowly dipping high grade plunges to the system. This is the kind of thing where you could probably develop quite a bit of tonnage. It'll be a structural zone, maybe a few meters wide, but over 2 kilometers long. Yes, there is potential to host a lot of gold, like 1 million+ ounces with luck. Okay, so we are going to go back in there and try to retest this.